Hello, everyone. It's great to be back here and imagine you listening to me since I can only see my own face here. But I'm so happy because I just finished off pretty much a 10-day marathon. I had the week of patient care after Thanksgiving, and then I had my extraction course in Montana, and then three more super intense days at work, and then a day of training with my consultants. So that is all over now, and I'm ready to lean into my next 3 days that I get to have off. So maybe you'll hear from me more than once. I don't know. I have missed making these videos. I don't know why I love this so much. I'm sorry again for being so nerdy about it. I just want to keep it real with everybody. And I was just talking to another female dentist friend of mine about 10 minutes ago. We female practitioners or other professionals, because I know that not all of you are dentists who are listening to this, and you're not all females either. So I'm sorry that sometimes I speak as if we're all ladies, but we female practitioners, we get so busy. And not only do we get busy, but we're like distracted in our minds, and then we don't make time to see each other face to face or just talk to each other and say, hey, this is how I felt today. And so then we just feel bad inside our heads and we're not having any connection. So I feel like these videos are kind of important. I've always been the person in people's lives who is known to say things like they really are. And I'm going to do this for you and speak some mom dentist reality for you today. And if you're not a dentist or you're not a mom or you're not even a woman, feel free to listen in because it all applies to each of us. So I think I've mentioned this before, but it's kind of funny. When I started dental school, I was a mother of two. They were just almost 4 and almost 2 when I started dental school. And I felt really guilty when I got my first student loan notification. I borrowed $30,000 that first year. We had been living on less than $1,000 a month at that time. So I felt very guilty about the debt that I was bringing into my family and the burden that it would be to repay that. I mean, it was, at the time, the house that we were living in was worth like $70,000. It was like half the value of our house. Anyway, what I did to assuage my mom guilt at that time seems so convoluted now, and I'm glad I did it, but for different reasons. I decided to have another baby because then I knew I was a good mom. So by the time gross anatomy started the second semester of my dental school year, I was 3 weeks pregnant with my youngest, who is now 14, and her name is Mimi, or her name is Miriam, but we call her Mimi, and she's just lovely. But every time she has a health problem, every single time, and she does have significant health problems. She has sleep apnea and a lot of allergies. Every single time I think about that, or if she gets sick, I think to myself, oh my gosh, that's probably happening because I was dissecting cadavers while she was a tiny embryo in my belly. And I blame myself for that. And I call that thing mom guilt. And I was just wondering if any of you guys have thought about what guilt really is. I mean, I've thought a lot about shame and why there's shame in humanity, but I feel like guilt is a little bit different. It's a little bit like shame light. And I have a theory about what guilt is. I'm going to hold my piece of paper so that I can say it correctly. It's when we allow our brains, and you guys know I've talked about this before, we have this independent, almost third-party conversation going on in our head all the time. It's when we allow our brains to tell us that we are to blame for a circumstance, which, by the way, is frequently imaginary, that we have perceived has a negative outcome. So for me, it would be my child is sick That's probably my fault because I dissected cadavers while she was an embryo. But here are some questions that I have for you the next time you are feeling mom guilt. Is the outcome that you are evaluating right now actually negative? Because a lot of times it's not really negative. I'll give you an example. It has nothing to do with parenting. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of sectioning a bridge because the posterior retainer was going to be extracted. And that bridge was made, by the way, out of the most base metal on the planet. It took me at least 15 to 20 minutes to section it. And of course, you have to do a good job because you're trying to keep the other crown. The instant I made it all the way through, guess what happened? The crown on the more anterior tooth popped right off. It wasn't even connected this entire time. And then I was like, I wonder about the back one. And I wiggled, and that one came off too. Well, you know what? It sucks when a bridge comes off, right? But at the same time, initially when that happened, I was like, oopsies. But then I was like, well, just a second now, because that's been sitting on there loose, and now I can re-cement it and seal it back down. So I did that. I was like, hey, good news. This happened while you were sitting right here in my chair. So now I can glue it back on, and you can still keep that crown because it fits great and nothing got rotten underneath there while it was loose. So this is a situation that could have been perceived as negative, but it wasn't really a negative situation. And I think maybe when we're mothering, we have a tendency to see things through those negative glasses more because we're scared that maybe we're not good enough. So that's the first question. Is it really a negative situation? And the second one, if we're feeling guilty, is, are we actually to blame, or are we just assuming that we're guilty because that's what we're used to doing? And that's a really good question to ask, because I think a lot of times if we're having a bad or a perceived bad outcome, we're not necessarily the people to be pointing a finger at. I mean, let's look at this situation with reality, guys. We are trying fucking hard every day. Okay, we're doing our very best. And sometimes we make mistakes, aka procedural errors. But are we really to blame for the fact that Sally went to school with one purple sock and one blue sock? Probably not. And who cares anyway? So some of these outcomes that we're talking about occur on things that are what I call made up constructs about parenting. So these are assumptions that we make about external signs that we are a good parent. For example, we don't have any pee stains on our toilet. Okay, I don't like looking at pee drops on my toilet either, but if I see a drop of pee that's dried on there, does that mean that my kids are going to grow up to be mass murderers? No, it means that we all void our bladder sometimes and nobody has scrubbed off the toilet lately. This is a made-up construct that the toilet has to be clean all the time. Another one, I should go to every single baseball game / concert / music lesson that my child has. No. Your child has his or her own life. And it's great when mom and dad can be there. But you can't be to every single thing. And anyway, if you're super busy and you don't have time to do the laundry or wipe the toilet, you might turn into a crazy person. And that is not going to help your child. Here's another one, and then I'll move on. My child's failure is my failure. That is also a made-up construct. Because guess what? We give our kids the tools to learn, the tools to make good decisions. We let them make mistakes. And if they have a failure, first of all, it's not the end of the world. Failure is a learning opportunity. Ask me how I know. The child's failure is their own failure. And it's not permanent. We can be there to support them, and we don't have to take their failure personally. We don't. We can let that be theirs. So now, I'm almost done. Please bear with me for just a second. Is it possible that we mom dentists are extending our mom guilt into our dental practices? For example, do you have any patients who are high caries risk? Maybe they have acid erosion and they drink Mountain Dew for a living, or they have absolutely no saliva in their mouths and they have 28 crowns to keep track of. So let's say you put a restoration in the mouth of one of these high caries risk patients and then the restoration fails. What have we been trained to think about ourselves when that happens from dental school? It's right here. You didn't tighten down those margins well enough. I didn't isolate like I should have. I should have used a rubber dam or whatever. This is false. This is false. It's the patient's tooth, the patient's oral environment, the patient's factors. And you know you did a good job on that restoration, or you wouldn't have let him walk out the door, because you're you and you're trying hard to be perfect. I know you are. Don't try to tell me you're not. So when you notice that you are doing this to yourself, either as a mom or a dentist or both, you're going to ask yourself these two questions. Is it really a negative outcome, or am I imagining that? And am I actually to blame? These are the two questions you're going to ask yourself. And if you have any comments, if you have any stories of mom guilt or dentist guilt that you want to share, let me know. I know we're all doing it, so you could share. And also, I know I've asked you this before, but I'm really trying to grow my presence. So if you enjoyed this video and if you have friends that you think would really benefit from this, please share so that I can touch more people's lives. I would really appreciate that. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend and spend some time taking care of yourself. Thanks, everyone.